We have a brand new 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser, and honestly, I think Toyota, with these designs that they're coming out with right now, I think they're catching up to Hyundai and Kia when it comes to just pushing out cool designs. This is one of the coolest retro designs I've ever seen. I'm going to show you exactly why, because I'm going to compare this new one to the old generations of the Land Cruiser. And the very cool thing about this is that they really went the extra mile here, because depending on what trim level you pick for your Land Cruiser, you're gonna get a completely different face. And both these faces that you can get with the new Land Cruiser are based or inspired by older models. I think it's such a cool design. But first of all, before jumping into Photoshop and have a look at the front, side, rear, and the interior, and I'm going to show you why exactly I think this is such a cool retro design, comparing it to the old ones. First of all, let's have a look at this article from Road and Track. So the 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser is smaller, hybrid only, and starts at around $55,000. Of course, it's based on the Lexus GX, but when it comes to the exterior design, honestly, I think I'm going to go with the Toyota Land Cruiser in this case, because it has this more industrial, less luxurious, more off-road focused vibe to it, which I love. After a 3-year hiatus, the Toyota Land Cruiser is back in the United States. And as they say here, less luxurious but more off-road focus than the one that it replaces, and also more off-road focus than the Lexus. And it will start in the mid $50,000 range, which I think it's a fantastic deal for a design like this. Can't wait to talk more about this design in just a minute. And it comes with standard manual fabric seats, leather seats, ventilated seats, and the 12.3-inch infotainment system are all optional. The base one is an 8-inch screen. Center and rear electronically locking differentials come standard, as they should on a Land Cruiser. Also missing from the standard equipment list is the V8 powertrain. Instead, this one comes only with a turbocharged 4-cylinder hybrid powertrain producing 326 horsepower, not bad at all, and 465 pound-feet of torque. It's crazy how manufacturers are managing to push out these torque numbers from 4 cylinders these days. The V8 200 series, it made 381 horsepower, so a little bit more, actually a substantial amount more in horsepower, but way less in torque, 401 horsepower from the V8. And we now have 465 pound-feet of torque from this 4-cylinder. Pretty cool technology-wise or engineering from Toyota. The Lexus, however, comes with a V6, and that has 349 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque from this the twin-turbo V6 that you find in the Lexus. It would be nice, maybe further down the line, they're gonna drop this V6 into the Land Cruiser as well. I'm not sure. And as they say here in the article again, this is a truck built for off-roading first and luxury second, as a Land Cruiser should be. And I think that's great, because look at this interior. I mean, this still feels luxurious enough. And there are some differences here from the Lexus interior, obviously, since they do make the Lexus a little bit more upscale. But again, in this interior version, I still prefer the interior of the Toyota over the Lexus. So let's jump in to Photoshop here. Let me show you exactly what's going on with this beautiful design. I'm going to compare it to the Lexus, and I'm going to show you the two different versions of a face that you can get with the new Land Cruiser, which is so cool. Depending on what trim level you choose, you're getting a different face for your Land Cruiser. So up top, of course, you can see that we have the Lexus, more luxuriously oriented, I would say, also in the styling, because we have more fancy LEDs in the front end, and it also has this Lexus grille with this angle, typical Lexus styling. I do love this design as well, as I said in my video of this new Lexus GX. But if we compare this to the new Toyota Land Cruiser, it got a lot more industrial, a lot more rugged, almost military style in the front end. And I love what they did here, because this has a clear connection to, for example, the 96, 95 Land Cruiser. I'm going to show that in the next picture here and compare the two, and just how much inspiration they actually took from that generation. You can see that the side is pretty much identical to the Lexus, which is expected, because they are based on basically the same platform and the same type of styling. We also have the A-pillar here with this interesting cut with this black trim that we also have right here in the Lexus. You can get the new Land Cruiser as a two-tone, and I think it looks fantastic in this blue color in the body, and then you have the white roof, giving it even more retro vibes. And looking at these wheels and tires, we have the proper off-road tires on this, and this is something that you have to go with if you're gonna get the new Land Cruiser and not the normal road tires. It just doesn't look right, specifically not with this cool styling that we have in the front end. We have the Heritage badge in the middle, and these fog lights down here are actually orange or amber style, further emphasizing this retro vibe of the Land Cruiser. However, if you don't like the yellow light in the fog lights, you can change that to white if you want to. And down below you can see that we have a proper skid plate right here. I'm not sure if we really have that on the Lexus. Looks like we have some sort of skid plate, but it doesn't look as rugged as it does on the very cool looking Land Cruiser right here. So this is the coolest comparison that I can give you. And this is the two different phases that you get with the new Land Cruiser down here. And you can see just how similar these are to the previous generations, the legendary generations of the Land Cruiser. I think it's such a cool design, and this Land Cruiser kind of gives me hope for the future of car design, because it's been stagnant for a while with some pretty boring designs from pretty much across the entire automotive field. But it feels like car design is coming back now with these type of designs. So have a look at this. We have a straight line where the graphic starts, straight line in the bottom, and we also have the same type of styling in the new design with the squared off rectangular headlights right here. You can see that this is clearly a perfect modernization of this. In this case, I believe this is a 96 Land Cruiser up top, which is one of my favorite designs of the Land Cruiser. And even the hood lines up top here has some connection to the previous generations of the Land Cruiser. Just a beautiful design. And this one is actually the base model, and I'm not sure, if I look at these two, I'm not really sure which one I would pick between these two, because I think they both look very cool. And this is also, of course, inspired by the round headlights that we have in the early 90s of the Land Cruiser. We still have the Heritage badge right here in the middle. And have a look at this. We have a dip right here where the bumper meets the rest of the body. We have this angle, and they actually implemented this angle in the new Land Cruiser as well. You can see that angle sort of coming back right here. And I love these round headlights. The thing is, these headlights on the upscale model, they look more slim, obviously, since they're not round, but the housing for it is the same size as we have in this one, in the base model with the round headlights. I honestly think that in this case, the round headlights sort of make more sense to me, and I think they look more classic and even more retro than what we have in the premium model of the new Land Cruiser. This is just an absolutely fantastic design, in my opinion, from pretty much every angle. So let's have a look at the side view and compare this Lexus GX to the new Land Cruiser down below. And here you can clearly see the connection between these two, because we have the same shoulder line right here cutting through the entire body all the way into this chamfer, creating a nice little muscle here over the rear axle. And we have these plastic cladding going around the wheel arches, both in the Lexus and in the new Land Cruiser. It will be interesting to see what this Lexus would look like if we body colored these panels to make it a little bit more luxurious. As I said, the Lexus is focused more on luxury than off-road, even though it's still a capable off-roader. But having that luxury feel, I think it would make sense to maybe make those body color and just see what that would look like. But again, looking at the front end, even from a side view, you do have this more rugged feel in the Land Cruiser, being very horizontal and vertical in the front end. And I also love these wheels. These look like these are maybe the 20-inch wheels that you can get with this, but it's fine as long as you go with the off-road tires. It's all good. The biggest changes here in the side view, I think, happens here in the rear. And this is another detail that I do prefer the Toyota in the front end, but I also prefer them in the back, because this is a much simpler integration of the taillight, and we don't have this big chamfer going around the housing of the taillight like we have right here in the Lexus. Instead, the taillight kind of just sits here by itself on the Land Cruiser, making it feel a little bit more basic, which I think is in line with what Toyota want to do with the new Land Cruiser. Last but not least, before we jump into the interior, let's have a look at the rear end. And here you can clearly see the two completely different integrations of the taillights. And this is what I'm talking about. The Lexus still has the light bar and it still looks very cool. It still has this industrial look to it, but it becomes even more so in the Toyota Land Cruiser. Very simplistic design, and if you're gonna make a retro design, you wanna have the taillight in the same position as you've had in pretty much all the generations coming up to the 2024 and 2025 generations, which is to have the headlights sitting normal, like a separated piece, no light bar and stuff like that. We still have the Toyota badge right here in the center, and we have a visible wiper, which I think is fine. Normally I would like to hide it up here, but in this case, this being a more a functional, practical vehicle with this off-road capability, I do feel like it's okay to have the wiper visible like we have right here. And I do love this chamfer that we have both on the Lexus going right here into the shoulder line. We have, of course, the same line right here going into the shoulder line on the Land Cruiser as well. However, in this press photo, you can see that we do have a spare tire down here, full-size spare tire, but we have the road tires on this specific Land Cruiser, and this completely just ruins the overall vibe of this car. Having these road tires instead of having the massive, rugged-looking off-road tires, it just completely changes the personality of the car, and this is why I'm saying you always need to go with the off-road tires for your Land Cruiser. I think they did a great job just separating the Lexus from the Toyota when it comes to the graphic features. And this still looks modern, but it still has the same kind of vintage vibe to it because of the placement and the overall design of the outline of the taillights. But the interior pieces, the internal parts, this LED bars that goes in here makes it look like a modernized version of the old generations of the Land Cruiser. Honestly, this design to me is one of the best retro-inspired designs I've seen in a very, very long time. It's maybe not up there with the Challenger, but it's very close when it comes to that type of philosophy, creating a new car. So let's have a look at the interior and the differences between the Lexus and the Toyota right here. So up top, we do have the Lexus. The overall vibe and the positioning of the different pieces are of course gonna be very similar, since again they're based on the same car, on the same platform. But you can see that it is a bit more luxurious in the Lexus. You have a different integration of the 12.3, I believe this is infotainment screen, and here you can see the 12-inch gauge cluster and the 12.3-inch infotainment screen. And this is actually, in my opinion, a huge step up when it comes to integrations of infotainment screen, specifically from Toyota. They've never really had great integrations with their screens. Normally what happens, you have angles like this in Toyotas and a lot of gloss black going like this, something crazy, and just making it feel very cheap. But in this case, you have more of a structural integration with the housing even for the gauge cluster. The gauge cluster now sits deep within the dash exactly like we want. We still have a housing for it, and then it extends into the infotainment screen without having any unnecessary angles or stuff like that to cut off this big screen. And you can also see that we do have a new design for the vents here. More squarish in the Lexus and a lot more round, as you can see right here in the Land Cruiser, looking absolutely fantastic. We also have a completely different integration of the buttons here, and thankfully, as you can see, well done Toyota. This is in my opinion a perfect design for an interior design in 2024 and 2025, because as I said, we have the cap for the gauge cluster. Gauge cluster is all digital, totally fine. That's great. You can customize it and do whatever you want with it. But we also have a nice integration of the infotainment screen, and in addition, we also have physical buttons for the climate control settings, which we don't have in the Lexus. And this is another reason why I would definitely go with the Toyota. And on top of that, I'm gonna save a lot of money doing that. I also like the steering wheel better in the Toyota. It looks more squarish and rugged, in line with the rest of the body of the Toyota, with all the buttons on the side here. You have the Toyota badge in the middle. Heritage badge, not the logo like we have in the Lexus. Lexus feels a little bit more stylized, which is exactly what they want to have compared to the Toyota. But overall, in this case, if I were to pick between the new Lexus GX and the Land Cruiser, I would definitely go with the base model of the Land Cruiser, this one right here, and add my own style, my own customizations to it. For example, put the right wheels and tires on it, and probably have a two-tone like we have here. You can see the white roof up top and the yellow body, but I would like to have that be in blue. Overall, an absolutely fantastic job by Toyota, and this is one of these cars that I really can't wait to get my hands on in real life and just walk around this. Another cool detail about this base model that I forgot to mention is that all the lightings, even the fog lights, are going to be LED, even in the base model. So the changes that you have here from the base and the more premium is, first of all, the difference in the front end design, but the biggest change is going to happen on the inside, where you have a lot more hard plastic in the base model. You also get the 8-inch infotainment screen, which is totally fine by me, specifically for the mid $50,000 range.